Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's WinterhelmGames and we're back with more horror story reactions from at Twisted Tales 2. That's T-O-O. So that's his handle if you want to go and check him out. Let him know I sent you across and give him some love, because there is another channel called Twisted Tales who does something similar, so not to get mixed up between the two ats. So it's at Twisted Tales 2, T-W-O. T-O-O. Sorry, I almost got it right there. Yeah, so Twisted Tales T-O-O, that's his handle, and you can go and see these ones now. I'm hoping he gets a few more up, because I don't think he's done any for about 9 or 10 months. But obviously, you can only do so much with the stories you're given. So if you have any good stories out there, things that happened to yourself or someone else, throw him a message. Let him know he can put a story together, and we can keep the reactions going for a bit. So I thought I would check out. There are more he's done up on the last year or so I haven't checked out, so I want to go through them all and make sure, because I always do a favor to myself to like them and comment on the ones that I've looked at, so I know that I've done it. And also go back on my own reviews and my own reactions to make sure. But anyway, I'm getting on. This one is 4 bone-chilling Michigan horror stories from the Great Lakes Nightmares. So this is about 18 minutes and 36 seconds. So 4 stories, so let's get into it. Like and subscribe if you like these kinds of reactions, especially over the wintry and autumn nights. I love autumn. See, September to December is definitely the best 4 months of the year. I always can never wait until the summer's over. I don't mind summer, but this is the best time of the year. So I'll be doing more of these reactions at least this month, and then the next, maybe if I get a chance, I'll do a couple for November as well, depending on what else I'm doing game wise and stuff, and reaction wise. I'll be getting more sci-fi reactions going as well. So anyway, that's enough rambling on from me. I'll stop at the end of each story, of course, and let you know what I think of each one. But in the meantime, sit back, relax, and as if you're sitting in a dark room, stick this on, turn the lights out, and let's listen together.
All right. So this happened a few years back when I was living in a small town up in Michigan. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and you'd think nothing too wild would go down. Well, let me tell you about the night I realized there's more to those quiet woods than meets the eye. It was late October, the kind of chilly night that makes you grateful for a warm jacket. My buddy, Jake, and I decided to go camping up by the Manistee National Forest. Figured it would be a good way to unwind, you know? Just 2 guys, a tent, and a couple of cold ones.
Sounds
We
good.
found a nice spot, set up our tent, and started a campfire. The woods were pitch black around us, with only the flickering fire to keep the darkness at bay. Everything was cool until we started hearing these weird whispers. At first I thought it was just the wind playing tricks, but these whispers had this freaky quality to them. Like voices you can't quite make out, but you know they're there. Jake and I looked at each other, and we were both trying to pass it off as our imaginations running wild. But then, the whispers got louder, and we started catching bits and pieces of words. It was like someone was talking just out of earshot, and every now and then, we'd hear our names. Creepy, right? I figured maybe there were other campers nearby, but when I called out, there was no response. As time went by, the whispers turned into this unsettling chatter. Jake and I tried to brush it off, blaming it on the wind, or maybe some animals goofing around. But deep down, we both knew something wasn't right. Around 3 a.m., we decided to pack it in. The whispers were still there, almost mocking us as we zipped up the tent. We huddled inside, trying to shake off the unease. Then we heard footsteps right outside the tent, slow and deliberate. Now, we're in the middle of nowhere, so hearing footsteps was enough to make our hearts race. We thought maybe it was a deer, but the footsteps had a rhythm, like someone passing back and forth. I mustered up the courage to unzip the tent and shine my flashlight around. The woods were dead silent, no wind, no rustling leaves, just the lingering echoes of those darn whispers. I scanned the area expecting to see eyes reflecting in the darkness, but there was nothing. That's when Jake pointed out something that truly creeped me out. He whispered, "Look at the trees." I followed his gaze, and in the dim light, I could see the trees swaying, but not like they were caught in a breeze. It was more like they were moving to the rhythm of those footsteps we heard. At this point, we were freaked out, no doubt about it. We decided to hunker down in the tent and wait for morning. But the whispers persisted, growing louder and more frantic. It was like the woods themselves were alive with some unseen energy. When dawn finally broke, we wasted no time packing up. As we were leaving, we heard a distant scream, a blood-curdling sound that froze us in our tracks. It didn't sound human, more like something out of a nightmare. We booked it out of there, hightailing it back to town. The whole way, we felt like we were being watched, and those whispers, they trailed us through the trees, like a twisted farewell from the woods. Once we got back in town, we decided to report what we'd heard to the local police. Now, small-town cops are used to dealing with the usual stuff, speeding tickets, maybe a lost dog. But when we started telling them about the whispers, the footsteps, and that unearthly scream, you could see the skepticism in their eyes. They promised to check it out, but I could tell they thought we were just a couple of city boys who got spooked by some wildlife. Still, they went up to the campsite, and when they came back, their faces told a different story. One of the officers pulled me aside and said, "We didn't find anything unusual, but we heard those whispers too. Couldn't make out what they were saying, but it gave us the creeps. Best stay away from those woods." And that's it. We never got a solid explanation, and to this day, I can't shake off the feeling that there's something off about those Michigan woods. Maybe it's just the wind playing tricks, or maybe there's something out there that doesn't want to be seen. All I know is, I won't be camping in those woods anytime soon. Not after the night the whispers wouldn't let us go.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I've been camping a few times, which is nice, especially in Canada when I was over there. Up and we had pretty much the lake to ourselves. It was fantastic. It was like there was a glass. It was so calm. It was great. And we went out on the boat, went out around the corner. You can see waterfalls and stuff. This was in Victoria, in Vancouver. Yeah, and but it was lovely, lovely lake up there. But yeah, I can get what. Yeah, I can. I understand if you get to hear those kinds of noises and things, and you will put it down to skepticism, I suppose, in some degree. Like, yeah, don't know. It could just be your imagination running wild and all the rest of it. But what would you do in that situation? Would you have stayed the night and left in the morning? Would you have reported it? Would you have just went straight away? Would you have went exploring into the woods? Everyone's different, I suppose, but I suppose it's hard to say what you would do properly until you're in that situation. I think most people, it's definitely going to come down to fight or flight, really, isn't it? You'll either just, it's self-preservation at the end of the day, isn't it? So, that was number one. Okay, so story two. Let's get into it. Oh, yeah.
I was a lighthouse keeper at Lake Michigan, which was stationed on this remote stretch of coastline where the nearest town felt like a world away. The gig was quiet, peaceful even, until one evening when the tranquility of the lighthouse turned into something that shook me to the core. It was late fall and the beginning of the chilly season. The waves crashed against the rocks below, and the wind howled through the tower. Now, I've spent enough nights in that lighthouse to know its creaks and groans, but this night was different. I was going about my usual routine, checking the equipment and making sure the light was doing its job. The sea below was rough, the waves roaring against the shore, but the lighthouse stood tall, a beacon in the storm. Unbeknownst to me, the storm was just beginning. As I was settling in for the night, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. It was a flicker of movement on the catwalk outside the lantern room. I figured it was just a seagull or maybe a shadow playing tricks in the moonlight. No big deal, right? But then, I heard footsteps echoing through the tower. Now, I'm the only one on duty, and there's no reason that anyone should be up there with me. I admit I got a little scared and my heart started racing as I grabbed the flashlight and headed up the narrow stairs to the lantern room. The wind seemed to howl louder as I stepped onto the catwalk. The light from the tower cast odd shadows on the railing, and that's when I saw her, a woman standing at the edge of the catwalk, her silhouette barely visible against the darkness. I called out, asking who she was and how she got up there, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned towards the sea, and I could see her hair whipping in the wind. It was like time stood still as I watched her, the waves crashing below, the lighthouse beam cutting through the night. I cautiously approached, my footsteps drowned out by the wind. "Hey, miss, you can't be up here, it's not safe," I shouted, my voice barely audible over the storm. But she just stood there, still, like she was part of the night itself. As I got closer, I could see her face, or the lack of it. It was like staring into a void, an empty space where a face should be. The wind carried whispers, unintelligible words that made my skin crawl. I reached out to touch her shoulder, but my hand passed through her as if she wasn't really there. Panic set in as I stumbled back, the realization sinking in that I was alone on that catwalk with something that defied explanation. I fumbled for my radio trying to call for help, but the static drowned out my voice. That's when the lighthouse beam flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that danced around us. I felt a chill in the air, not from the wind, but from something else, something otherworldly. The woman turned her faceless gaze towards me, and in that moment, I felt a deep, unsettling sorrow. It was like she was trying to convey a message, but the words were lost in the howling wind. I mustered up the courage to back away, retreating down the stairs and locking the lantern room behind me. The footsteps faded, and the wind outside quieted. I sat there in the dim light, trying to make sense of what just happened. A few hours later, when morning came, I hesitated to unlock the lantern room, half expecting to find the mysterious woman still there. But the catwalk was empty, and the storm had passed. It was just me in the lighthouse, standing on the edge of the coastline. I never spoke much about that night, afraid people would think I'd lost my marbles. But every time I climbed those stairs, I couldn't shake the memory of the faceless woman on the catwalk, and I often wondered who she was. Some say the sea has a way of holding on to its secrets, and that night, it whispered a tale that still haunts the quiet shores of that Michigan lighthouse. Whether it was a ghost or something beyond our understanding, I can't say. But I know one thing. The next time I hear footsteps coming from the catwalk, I will not be venturing up there to see who or what is there. One time
There we are. Now, he done more than I would have done, to be fair. Like, if you start to see that there was no face on the girl initially, like, I don't think excuse for that. I just don't think anyone would have had the guts to go over and try and touch her shoulder. At least I don't think I could have. You know, who knows, I mean, everyone is different, of course. Like, people can do, like, I don't think I could do that job. A lighthouse in general, but I have two different jobs at the moment. I'm actually an undertaker. I wanted to get that done full time, but at the moment it's just part-time work. So I'm working as a supervisor at the airport as well. But obviously people ask me as well that there's jobs that they couldn't do that I do in terms of working with the dead and things like that. But I still don't think whenever you realize you're alone and there's someone you can see in front of you, is defying all logic, all alarms are going off your head. Yeah, again, it comes down to fight or flight. I just don't know what I could have done in that situation, but that's interesting. But let me know what you think. Story number 3.
my buddies and I went trailing up in Michigan and stumbled onto something we never saw coming. We definitely weren't ready for what was lurking in the woods when the sun went down. So there were 5 of us, me, Sam, Jake, Lisa, and Ben. We were your typical group of friends, always looking for the next adventure. We'd heard about this supposedly haunted trail up near the Upper Peninsula, and being the thrill seekers we were, we decided to check it out. It was early October, the leaves just starting to turn shades of orange and red. We parked the car near the trailhead, excitement and nervous energy buzzing through the air. Now, I'm not one to believe in all that supernatural mumbo-jumbo, but this trail had a reputation, and we were eager to see if it lived up to the hype. The trail itself was your usual wooded path, trees towering over us, their branches forming a natural canopy. We joked and laughed, the atmosphere light as we ventured deeper into the woods. It wasn't long before the sun dipped below the horizon, and that's when things took a turn. The first sign that something was off was the silence. 1 minute we're cracking jokes, and the next it's like the whole forest is holding its breath. The crunch of leaves beneath our feet became uncomfortably loud, each step echoing in the stillness. We pushed on, thinking maybe it was just our imagination playing tricks on us. But then we noticed the temperature drop. It wasn't a gradual chill that comes with the evening. It was like walking into a cold front, and the air became dense with an unspoken tension. Lisa was the first to voice what we were all thinking. "Does anyone else feel that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We all nodded, looking at each other. The laughter from earlier had faded, replaced by a collective unease that hung in the air like a fog. As we continued down the trail, shadows danced between the trees, playing tricks on our eyes. Every rustle in the bushes, every snap of a twig, gave each of us goose pimples. I remember looking at Sam, and there was this look in his eyes, a mixture of fear and confusion. Then we heard a soft, distant humming sound. It was melodic, almost hypnotic, but there was something unsettling about it. We all looked at each of us, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. The trail led us deeper into the woods, the humming growing louder with each step. It felt like the trees themselves were resonating with the strange melody. I remember Ben saying, "This is giving me the creeps, guys. Maybe we should turn back." But curiosity got the better of us, and we pressed on, the trail now bathed in an otherworldly glow. The humming intensified, and it was as if the very air around us vibrated with an unseen energy. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. As we rounded a bend in the trail, we stumbled upon a clearing, and that's when things took a truly bizarre turn. In the center of the clearing, there was this old, weathered piano, its keys worn from years of neglect. We stared at it, dumbfounded, trying to make sense of how a piano ended up in the middle of nowhere. The humming now had a source, a figure seated at the piano, their back to us. It was a slow, haunting melody that seemed to seep into our very bones. We hesitated, unsure of whether to approach or retreat. Jake, being the brave soul he was, took a step forward, calling out a tentative, "Hello?" The figure at the piano went still, the humming cutting off abruptly. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze, and the air hung heavy with anticipation. Then, the figure turned slowly, and that's when the fear kicked in. It wasn't a person. It was this faceless silhouette, shrouded in darkness. We couldn't make out any features, but we could feel its gaze on us, a penetrating stare that sent a chill down our spines. Without a word, we bolted, adrenaline pumping as we raced back down the trail. The humming resumed and was
Definitely.
fainter, but it lingered in our ears, a chilling reminder of the creepy encounter. We didn't stop until we reached the car, hearts pounding, breaths ragged. As we drove away, the forest disappeared in the rearview mirror, but the memory of that haunting melody lingered. We didn't talk much on the way home, each lost in our thoughts, trying to make sense of the surreal experience. To this day, none of us have been able to explain what we stumbled upon in those Michigan woods. Was it some kind of elaborate prank? Or did we inadvertently wander into a realm beyond our understanding? All I know is that the humming stayed with us, and we vowed never to return to those woods again.
That was a good one. It kind of reminded me of one that there's some stories which I just got reminded of today actually because I've seen one of the clips on YouTube. Story, it was true ghost stories around the British Isles, and it was narrated by Richard O'Brien, the same guy who done likes of the Crystal Maze back in the day, and he was part of Rocky Horror Show and all the rest of it. Brilliant, brilliant person, brilliant actor, brilliant, yeah, just very good guy. Very good at telling his stories, and he had covered one of them, which was about Ben McDougall, one of the mountains in the Scottish Cairngorms that was haunted, it's allegedly haunted. And the people, well, went up so far, hearing this crunch on the rough ground, like footsteps on rough ground, coming down from the cairn, from the summit, coming down to them. And no one apparently has ever waited to see, because obviously a fog comes down at this point, even on a clear day, and they can't see more than a foot or two ahead of them, and they're just waiting, watching in the fog to see what's going to emerge. But one or two of the ones who had seen this had witnessed a large figure coming down through the fog towards them. And this, when they were looking at the stride and how, like how long a step is taking. It's taking 3 or 4 times the length of an ordinary person. And that kind of reminded me of that story there a wee bit, of them kind of fleeing away and running and not wanting to wait. But reminding myself of those stories from Richard O'Brien narrating it, uh, I wouldn't mind reviewing a few of them again, because I haven't really listened to them since I was a kid. You know, I remember the mobile library coming around in the schools back in the day. You could go down and get a book or CDs, or what, not CDs, was tapes at that point. CDs weren't a thing. And I seen that tape, True Ghost Stories, and I thought, yeah, I'll take that, and yeah, listen to that over and over again. Scared myself a few times. Listened to it in a dark room as a kid, but it still reminded me of that. But anyway, there we are. So, what would you do in that situation? Let's go into number 4.
It was a sunny weekend, and the family and I decided to take a little trip to one of the islands up in Michigan. You know, horses, fudge, all that touristy stuff.
Nice.
We'd been there before, so we definitely weren't expecting anything out of the ordinary. We hopped on the ferry, the kids buzzing with excitement, and made our way to the island. The weather was perfect. Clear skies, a gentle breeze, the whole deal. We rented bikes and explored the scenic trails, stopped by Arch Rock, did all the usual stuff. Now, our plan was to stay at this quaint bed and breakfast, nestled away from the hustle and bustle. The place had that old-timey charm, creaky floors and all. The innkeeper, I'll just call her Mrs. Henderson for privacy reasons, greeted us with a warm smile, showed us to our rooms, and everything seemed peachy. The weirdness kicked in that evening. We were all gathered in the common area sipping on hot cocoa when we heard it. Faint mumbling sounds through the halls. At first, we brushed it off, figuring it was just the sound of an old building settling. As more time passed, the mumbling got louder and more distinct. I remember looking at the missus like, "You hearing this too, right?" The kids were already spooked, and to be honest, so were we. Curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to investigate. I wandered down the creaky hallway, following the mumbling to a room at the end. The door was slightly ajar, and the mumbling was now full-on conversations, like multiple people talking all at once. I pushed the door open, expecting to find a bunch of rowdy guests, but the room was empty. I mean, totally empty. There was just an old rocking chair swaying on its own, and the curtains dancing with the breeze. But the mumbling persisted, though. The next day, we decided to shake off the spookiness and enjoy the island. But everywhere we went, it felt like we were being watched. The creepy mumbling sound followed us, faint at first, then growing louder whenever we stopped. We explored the shops, even indulged in some famous fudge, but the weird vibes didn't let up. It was like the island itself was trying to tell us something, but the message was lost in those haunting mumbles. That evening, back at the bed and breakfast, things took an even stranger turn. We were settling down for the night when the kids started talking about an imaginary friend they'd made. A little girl they claimed they met in the hallway. Now, my kids are creative, but this felt different. They described her as wearing an old-fashioned dress, her hair tied up in ribbons. I exchanged another look with the missus, and we couldn't shake the feeling that the little girl wasn't as imaginary as they thought. As we tucked the kids in, we heard the mumbling again, this time more urgent, like a chorus of voices trying to convey a message. We followed the sound, and it led us to the attic. The door was locked, but the innkeeper, Mrs. Henderson, had the key. She looked at us with a mix of sympathy and concern. "Some guests claim to hear mumbling up there, but it's just an old building, dear," she said. But her eyes told a different story, like she knew more than she let on. We entered the attic, and the mumbling reached a peak. It was overwhelming, like a tidal wave of voices pleading for something. In the dim light, we saw an old chest, covered in dust and tucked away in a corner. With trembling hands, I opened the chest, and that's when the mumbling stopped. The room fell silent, and we stared at what lay inside. A collection of old photographs, letters, and a worn-out diary. It belonged to a family who once lived in that very inn. As we flipped through the pages, the story unfolded. The family had faced tragedy. A little girl who passed away at a young age. Her laughter echoed through the diary. Her presence forever imprinted in those faded photographs. The inn, it seemed, held on to the memories of the past. The mumbling were the voices of those long gone, reaching out to be remembered. The little girl our kids spoke of wasn't imaginary. She was a part of the island's history, a lingering spirit trying to connect with the living. We decided to leave the inn, not out of fear, but out of respect for the souls who were once there. The island, with its mumbling and hidden stories, became a memory etched in our minds. As we boarded the ferry back to the mainland, the island disappeared behind us and the mumbling faded with the wind. But the memories of what we encountered will stay with us our entire lifetime.
So there you are. So I say that's Twisted Tales there. That's the photograph. It's Twisted Tales. And this, the @ is Twisted Tales TOO. So yeah, he may own the other Twisted Tales channel. Maybe he doesn't have access to it. I don't know. Maybe it's why he's made this one. Who knows? I didn't ask him. All I asked him was if it's fine to do some reactions of his products, of his stories, and to relay some people to his channel. So I think it's worth it while checking out. I might look at this one next, but in the meantime, that was very good. I enjoyed those. But if there's anything else you'd like to see, if you want to react to a few more things, I know I do get a lot of American viewers according to my analytics on the channel, so I'm interested to know if there's any more horror stories, or is Michigan known for its haunted places and different things. If you're from America, and especially if you're from Michigan, do let me know. But if you are from America and you just know of other places nearby or other horror stories or other things I can check out, let me know in the comments down below and I'll be happy to look at them. Especially if it's something that I can review on stream with you here on YouTube, and I'll put them up over the next little weeks or months whenever I can get a chance to. Especially over the autumn and winter period. That's why I like to do these as well. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I'm going to try and see if I can put these up every Tuesday, and then I'll do like a sci-fi reaction or games and different things on a Thursday perhaps. But we'll see how it goes. But keep an eye on the channel for now. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these reactions, and you have yourselves a great day, folks. Take care for now. Bye.